He thought he was teaching a kid a lesson. But in 10 seconds, he'll learn he just slapped the new police chief's son. And when that father runs across the park, this quiet town will never sleep peacefully again. Stories like this prove one thing: power fades, but truth never dies. Drop your city in the comments, and if you stand for justice, hit that like and subscribe. Because this isn't just storytelling, it's a movement. The morning sun shimmered softly over Crescent Park, painting the grass in gold. Children laughed near the swings, the hum of summer filled the air, and for a brief moment, everything felt peaceful, almost perfect. At the far end of the park sat Malik Carter, a bright-eyed 9-year-old boy with paint on his fingers and dreams in his eyes. He was working on a small wooden birdhouse, carefully brushing blue paint across its roof. His father had promised to hang it on their porch that evening, a small project to celebrate their new beginning in this town. Just a week ago, Malik and his father, Chief Raymond Carter, had moved to Oak Ridge, a quiet American suburb that prided itself on good manners and order. What most people didn't know yet was that the town's new police chief was a black man, a first in Oak Ridge's history. Across the street, in his patrol car, Officer Brent Kessler sipped his coffee, eyes half hidden behind mirrored shades. He'd been on the force for 15 years, known for being tough, or, as some whispered, reckless. To him, the park was his patrol zone, his kingdom of control. And when he saw a young black boy alone near the benches, paint cans scattered, his gut twisted in irritation. "Unsupervised again," he muttered, tossing his cup aside as he opened the door. He didn't see a child painting. He saw a problem. Malik looked up, sensing the heavy footsteps behind him. The man's badge glinted under the sunlight, and the boy froze, confused, cautious. "Hey!" Kessler barked. "You making a mess here?" Malik shook his head quickly. "No, sir. I'm just painting," my dad said. But the officer wasn't listening. He saw the paint smudge on the bench and decided, in that moment, to make a point. Nearby, a few parents turned their heads. The laughter of children dulled. A mother reached for her phone, quietly pressing record. Across the street, Chief Raymond Carter was exiting a small cafe, holding 2 cups of coffee, one for himself, one for his son. His face was calm, proud. Until he heard it. The sharp tone. The trembling voice. The sound of fear he'd learned to recognize years ago. He looked up, and his world narrowed. There, under the tree, stood his son, and in front of him, Officer Kessler's hand raised high. The park fell silent. The wind seemed to pause. And in that moment, before anyone could react, the slap echoed through the morning air. A coffee cup dropped to the ground. A father's heart turned to fire. And Oak Ridge, that quiet, proud little town, was about to learn the true meaning of justice. The park froze. Every sound vanished, the laughter, the wind, even the distant hum of traffic. Only one sound lingered, that sharp, echoing slap. Malik stood still, one hand over his cheek, his eyes wide in disbelief. He didn't cry, he just looked up at the officer, confused and hurt, the paintbrush still trembling in his small hand. Officer Brent Kessler's chest heaved. His hand was still midair, his jaw locked. For a moment, even he realized what he'd just done, but pride wouldn't let him back down. Not in front of the watching eyes. "Maybe next time you'll learn to listen," he muttered coldly, brushing dust off his sleeve. He didn't notice the silence deepening, or the footsteps storming toward him. Across the park, Chief Raymond Carter was running. His coffee cup rolled across the path, spilling brown trails behind him. The muscles in his face tightened, fury, disbelief, heartbreak, all crashing into one unstoppable force. "Hey," his voice thundered, cutting through the still air like a blade. Every head turned. Kessler spun around, frowning. Chief Carter? But the title didn't matter right now. Raymond wasn't a police chief in that moment, he was a father. He stepped between the officer and his son, his tall frame blocking Malik completely. His voice trembled, low and dangerous. "What did you just do?" Kessler straightened his posture, trying to regain control. Sir, I was just disciplining the boy. He was vandalizing public property. Vandalizing? Raymond snapped, pointing to the small birdhouse on the bench. That's paint. Non-toxic. From his art kit. A woman nearby spoke up. We saw everything, officer. The kid wasn't doing anything wrong. Others murmured in agreement. Phones were already recording, lenses aimed, capturing every heartbeat of this moment. But Kessler's pride burned hotter than his reason. With all due respect, Chief, he began, but Raymond cut him off. No. You lost that respect the second you laid your hand on my son. The crowd grew. People whispered, recording, sending live videos to social media. Some recognized Carter, Oak Ridge's new police chief, appointed barely a week ago. And now, the very system he was sworn to lead had just struck his child. Malik tugged at his father's sleeve, voice shaking. Dad, I didn't do anything wrong. I swear. Raymond crouched, gently placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. I know, son. I know. He stood again, eyes locking on Kessler's. Calm now, but that calm was the kind that made grown men nervous. Officer Kessler, remove your badge and weapon. Kessler blinked. Sir, what? You heard me. You're suspended, effective immediately. I'll handle the report myself. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A rookie officer nearby whispered, Wait, that's his boss. Kessler's face turned red, his voice rising. You can't be serious. This is a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding here, Carter interrupted, is you thinking your badge gives you power over people instead of responsibility. A hush fell again. Kessler's hand hovered over his holster, not out of threat, out of panic, pride, and fear colliding. But Raymond didn't flinch. He stepped closer, eyes locked. You're done for today, officer. Go home. And pray that video doesn't hit the department before my report does. Kessler hesitated, then ripped off his badge and tossed it onto the ground beside the birdhouse. You'll regret this, he hissed, walking away. Raymond knelt beside Malik again, lifting the boy's chin gently. You okay? Malik nodded slowly, a tear finally breaking free. Yeah, but everyone was watching. Raymond smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried both pain and pride. Good, he said quietly. Let them watch. Because justice, real justice, wasn't hidden behind office doors or fancy speeches. Sometimes, it happened right there in the sunlight. In front of everyone. And as Kessler's figure disappeared beyond the trees, Raymond turned back to the crowd. His voice carried through the park, steady and firm. No one, not even a man with a badge, is above accountability. The video spread faster than wildfire. By sundown, the clip of Officer Brent Kessler slapping a young boy in Crescent Park had already reached every corner of Oak Ridge and beyond. Within hours, it was on local news feeds, trending on social media under one tag. #Justice for Malik. Every second of the video told a story: the slap, the silence, the father's arrival, the badge hitting the ground. People watched not just a moment of anger, but the face of accountability finally staring back at authority. Inside the Oak Ridge Police Department, tension simmered like a storm about to break. Officers whispered in hallways, phones buzzed nonstop, and news vans lined the street outside. In his office, Chief Raymond Carter sat silently at his desk. The blinds were drawn, but the weight of 100 eyes still pressed through. His son's face, that stunned, scared look, played in his mind over and over. He had replayed the video a dozen times, each one cutting deeper. The door opened. Captain Morris, an older white officer with decades on the force, stepped in. Chief, Internal Affairs just called. They want to know if you'll recuse yourself from the case. Raymond looked up slowly. And let someone else decide what happens to the man who hit my son. Morris hesitated. They're saying it might look personal. Raymond exhaled, the air trembling with restraint. It is personal, Captain. That's why I'm not walking away from it." He stood, his reflection catching in the glass behind him, a black man in a blue uniform, standing at the intersection of justice and identity. "This isn't just about my boy," he continued. "It's about every father who's ever had to explain why someone with a badge treated his child differently." Morris lowered his gaze. "Understood, Chief." That evening, the emergency town press conference filled the Oak Ridge Community Hall. Cameras flashed, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some came in anger, others in support. At the podium stood Chief Carter, his expression composed but fierce. "Good evening," he began, voice steady. "You've all seen the video. There's no excuse, no justification, and no defense for what happened in that park." A quiet filled the hall. Every word carried weight. "I took an oath, not to protect badges, but to protect people. Justice doesn't bend for anyone, not even for those who wear this uniform." He paused, the next word shaking slightly. "And yes, that child in the video is my son. But this investigation isn't about family. It's about integrity. And I intend to make sure that integrity means something in this department again." Reporters scribbled, flashes went off. Some officers stood in the back, heads bowed. "Officer Kessler has been placed on indefinite suspension pending full investigation. And effective immediately, Oak Ridge Police will begin a mandatory accountability and bias review for every officer, including myself." Applause erupted, not loud, but real. Among the crowd, parents nodded. Teens raised their phones to record. It wasn't just a press conference, it was a moment of change. Later that night, back home, Malik sat on the porch, the small birdhouse finally dry and painted bright blue. He looked up as his father joined him, the day's weight still clinging to his shoulders. "Dad," Malik whispered, "did I do something wrong?" Raymond smiled softly. "No, son. You did everything right. You stayed kind, even when the world wasn't." Malik looked at the birdhouse. "You think they'll forget about it?" His father shook his head. "They won't. Because the truth doesn't disappear, it just waits for the right moment to shine." He reached over, hanging the birdhouse on the porch beam. The wind caught it gently, rocking it side to side. "Sometimes," Raymond said quietly, "justice starts with one loud moment. And ends with quiet change." As the camera pulled back, the porch light glowed warm against the night, the small blue birdhouse swaying like a symbol of peace reborn. And across town, the same video that began in anger was now teaching thousands what justice really looks like. A week later, Crescent Park looked different. Not because of the grass, the benches, or the trees, but because of the people. Where once there was silence, there was now awareness. Families of every color sat together, children played without fear, and for the first time in a long time, the town felt like it was breathing truth. Chief Raymond Carter walked through the park quietly, his badge gleaming not as a symbol of power, but of responsibility. Every step he took was greeted by nods, handshakes, and quiet thank yous. He stopped under the same tree where it had all happened. Malik was there again, this time with a few friends, repainting the old wooden birdhouse, now bright red and blue, with one word carved carefully on the side. Justice. Raymond smiled softly, pride glowing behind his calm eyes. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would still be doubt, criticism, resistance. But what happened that day had already shifted something, in the department, in the town, and inside every person who had watched. Later, as the sun dipped behind the park, Malik looked up at his dad and asked, "Did he ever say sorry?" Raymond paused for a moment, his gaze following the horizon. "No," he said. "But that's okay. Because real change doesn't start with an apology, it starts with accountability." He placed a hand on Malik's shoulder, both of them watching the birdhouse sway gently in the evening breeze. "You see, son, justice doesn't need to shout. Sometimes, it just needs to stand its ground, and let the truth do the talking." The camera slowly pulled back, the park glowing under the orange sky, the word justice catching the light. Stories like this prove one thing: power fades, but truth never dies. Drop your city in the comments, and if you stand for justice, hit that like and subscribe. Because this isn't just storytelling, it's a movement.